What does it feel like to carry a legend's name, but still search for your own voice? On the grand stage of Britain's Got Talent, bright lights shimmered like distant stars. The crowd waited. The judges sat still. And somewhere behind the curtain stood a 17-year-old girl, breathing slowly, trying to calm the storm inside her chest. Her name was Paris Jackson. She was known to the world as the daughter of Michael Jackson, the king of pop. But tonight, she did not want to be a legacy. She wanted to be a voice. Paris was gentle by nature. Sensitive. Deep. She carried emotions quietly, like pages of a diary no one had read. Fame had followed her since childhood, but she had always walked a little behind it, unsure if the spotlight was warmth, or fire. In the front row sat her younger brother, Prince. Protective. Observant. Calm in the way only someone who has grown up in chaos can be calm. He watched the stage not as a fan, but as family. He knew how heavy their last name could feel. And then there was Simon Cowell, sharp-eyed, experienced, rarely surprised. Years on talent stages had taught him how to read nerves, ambition, and truth. Yet even he seemed uncertain tonight. Because this wasn't just another audition. This was history returning. Paris had stood on this stage once before. She had sung. She had surprised them. She had shaken the room. But something unfinished still lingered in the air. Why had she returned? Was it to prove something to the world? Or to prove something to herself? The curtains slowly began to part. A soft golden light stretched across the floor like a sunrise. And in that quiet second before her first step forward, one question floated through the theater. Can a daughter step out of a shadow, without losing the light that created it? The audience did not know yet. But they were about to witness a journey that would not end in applause. It would end in tears. Paris Jackson had grown up in a world that never truly slept. Cameras followed her childhood. Headlines wrote stories before she even understood what they meant. Being the daughter of Michael Jackson meant living inside a story that had already been written by millions of people. But Paris was never loud. She was quiet in the mornings. She loved sitting near windows, letting sunlight rest on her face while she wrote in small notebooks. Words were easier than conversations. Music was safer than interviews. She often hummed unfinished melodies under her breath, almost like secrets she wasn't ready to share. At 17, she carried both privilege and pressure. People expected magic from her. They expected the moonwalk in her shadow, the high notes in her blood. But Paris didn't dance like her father. She didn't try to copy him. Her voice was softer. More fragile. It trembled sometimes, not from weakness, but from honesty. She had small habits when she felt nervous. She twisted a silver ring on her finger. She counted her breaths slowly, 1 to 5, then back again. Before stepping on stage, she would close her eyes and whisper silent prayers, not for fame, but for courage. There were days she questioned herself. Was she talented, or just famous? Was applause real, or simply inherited? Behind the stage of Britain's Got Talent, those thoughts returned like old echoes. Her first appearance had surprised many. But this time felt different. This time she wasn't just introducing her voice. She was introducing her truth. Her emotional state was delicate that evening. Hope and fear lived side by side inside her heart. She wanted to honor her father's legacy, but she also longed to step beyond it. Paris did not want to be remembered as someone's daughter. She wanted to be remembered as herself. And as the stage lights warmed the air outside, she stood alone backstage, holding on to one simple belief. The hardest thing about being Paris Jackson was not the stage. It was the silence that followed her home. After her first appearance on Britain's Got Talent, the world had divided itself into opinions. Some praised her courage. Some questioned her talent. And some whispered the same painful sentence again and again, "She is only famous because of her father." Those words stayed longer than applause. Paris had spent years trying to understand what it meant to be the daughter of Michael Jackson. To the world, he was a legend. To her, he was warmth. A memory of gentle hands and bedtime songs. A voice that once filled their home with comfort. But after his passing, that voice became an echo. And echoes can be lonely. Growing up without him left a space in her heart that no spotlight could fill. Every performance felt like walking toward him, but never reaching him. Every stage felt like both a tribute and a test. She feared disappointing a man who was no longer there to reassure her. That was her silent struggle. Not competition. Not critics. Not even comparison. It was grief. There were nights she lay awake replaying memories she barely remembered clearly. Photographs became her proof that those moments had been real. She wondered if he would be proud. Or if he would tell her to slow down, to protect her fragile heart from the world's noise. Returning to that stage meant reopening all of it. If she failed, people would say the legacy ended with him. If she succeeded, they would say she only borrowed his light. Either way, she felt trapped between expectation and identity. That was the central problem that changed her life, realizing that no performance could bring back the father she missed, and no applause could answer the question she carried inside. Who is Paris, when the music stops? And tonight, that question stood in front of her, heavier than ever. The music began softer than anyone expected. No dramatic opening. No powerful high note. Just a fragile melody that floated through the theater like a memory trying to return home. Paris stood alone under the golden lights of Britain's Got Talent. For a moment, her hands trembled. The audience leaned forward, waiting to hear something legendary, something that would remind them of Michael Jackson. But what they heard instead, was vulnerability. Her voice cracked in the first few lines. A small imperfection. A human moment. There was a pause in the crowd, the kind that feels heavy. The kind that can either break someone, or rebuild them. And in that pause, something unexpected happened. Paris stopped trying to sing perfectly. She stopped chasing comparisons. She stopped imagining headlines. She stopped carrying the weight of a last name. Instead, she closed her eyes. And she sang as a daughter. Not of a legend. But of a father she missed. The lyrics were simple, filled with longing and quiet strength. They did not shout. They did not demand applause. They told a story of loss, of growing up too fast, of learning to stand alone when the guiding hand disappears. Her trembling turned into emotion. Her emotion turned into truth. And suddenly, the theater changed. The audience was no longer listening to Michael Jackson's daughter. They were listening to a 17-year-old girl who had known love, and known loss. Even Simon Cowell sat still, his usual expression softened. He wasn't judging technique anymore. He was witnessing something real. By the final note, the air felt different. Thicker. Almost sacred. Paris opened her eyes slowly. And for the first time in her life, she did not feel like she was standing in someone's shadow. She felt seen. That was the moment everything shifted. She realized she didn't need to escape her father's legacy. She needed to accept it. And then build her own path beside it. And as the applause slowly rose like a wave, tears began to gather in her eyes. Not from fear. But from release. When the applause finally faded inside the theater of Britain's Got Talent, something far more important remained. Peace. Paris Jackson stood there with tears on her cheeks, not because she had won anything, and not because she had proven critics wrong. The tears came from a quiet realization, she no longer needed permission to be herself. For years, she had carried the name of Michael Jackson like fragile glass. Beautiful. Powerful. but heavy. She feared dropping it. She feared failing it. She feared never shining brightly enough to honor it. But that night taught her something deeper. A legacy is not a shadow meant to hide you. It is a light meant to guide you. Paris understood that she did not have to compete with history. She did not have to recreate magic that already changed the world. Her father's story was complete. Hers was still being written. And that is the lesson her journey leaves behind. We all carry something from our past. A family name, an expectation, a memory of someone we love and miss. Sometimes it feels too big for us. Sometimes it feels like we will never escape comparison. But growth does not come from running away from where we come from. It comes from accepting it, and then choosing who we want to become. Paris did not leave the stage as a legend's daughter. She left as a young woman who faced her grief, embraced her identity, and found courage in vulnerability. Her tears were not weakness. They were proof that healing had begun. And perhaps that is the most powerful performance of all, not the one that earns a standing ovation, but the one where a person finally stands confidently in their own light. Because in the end, the world does not need another copy of greatness. It needs your truth.